Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. And today we have a great guest, client, friend, all of the above. I'm so excited, honestly. I've been trying to get her to be on this podcast for probably a year now, or close to it. Her story is absolutely incredible, will blow you away. You're going to want to go and follow her. You're going to want to go read her book. Just find out all that you can about how does this happen? How does one go from where she started to where she is now? What's the thought processes? What are the elements of intention and legacy that came with that? And how are you similar, maybe not in the exact same situation, but similar to her? I'm not going to take all of her thunder, but I do want to say she has become and is a world-class functional nutrition coach, as well as the CEO and co-founder of Commando, which takes care of beauty and skin products. But I'm so excited to introduce you to Lizzie Ens. She absolutely will blow you away. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to love it because she's beautiful. I'm the not good-looking one in this conversation. But more importantly, her story is beautiful. Her heart is beautiful. And who she is as a person, her desire to serve and bless the people around her is beautiful. And that's why I've been trying to get her so long to get on here. We've always just missed our schedule, but we finally got it. So thank you so much, Lizzie, for being here. Tell us a little bit about your history. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it's your show now. Tell us where you started, where you came from, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, my name is Lizzie Ens, and it was June 30th, 2004. I was sitting on the top of a 15-foot roof, preparing to jump off that roof to run away and escape from my Amish family. Now, I'm going to back you up a little bit. I grew up in the strictest form of the Amish community in Ohio until the age of 19. To paint a little picture about what this looks like, you want to think about this Amish community as sort of being stuck in 1860, right before the steam engines came out. They said, we don't want to continue to modernize more. And the Amish are a break off from the Anabaptists, so they go way, way, way back. However, this is where the Schwarzentuber Amish, where I'm from, said, we're not going any further. We got to stay less modern. We don't want to advance. And so we didn't have electricity. We didn't have indoor plumbing. We had no running water, any of those things. So we had outhouses. So we had to go to the bathroom. We had to go outside when it's really, really cold. So I grew up on an 80-acre farm, have 18 siblings with the same parents. There were three sets of twins in that family. So my mom had 3 sets of twins. And I had a really, really good experience growing up the way that I did. But along with that, there's a very, very hard and difficult times as well. And one of the things that you need to understand about the Amish is it's very, very much controlled. There's cult-like features about it. I'm very careful how I throw around the word cult. I think that there are definitely cult-like features, but I don't know that I would say that it's 100% a cult. I think it's a very, very strong religion and a way of life. But it's something that teaches you a lot of really, really good things. But along with that, there are those hard and difficult things as well. And I want to focus and emphasize on the good things that it taught me while also sharing some of the difficult things. One of the things that you'll know if you find me on social media and you listen to me and my podcasts and how I share things is I will share a lot of really, really good things and what it taught me. But I will also share some of the hard things. But I will not be a victim because I'm not a victim. It has made me who I am today. And I need to set that clear and make sure that as you're listening to this, that is not who I am. And I'm only here to share my story and the experience that I had so that it can teach you and give you hope for your future as well and what legacy that you want to leave. So at about the age of 15, I started to realize like, I don't necessarily want to be here anymore. And I didn't know what that would look like. I knew that there were people in the Amish community that leave and they run away and they escape. And we didn't have Rumspringa, so there was no way of like experiencing the outer world for a short period of time to decide whether or not you want to leave. Now, other orders of the Amish will do that, but where I'm from, not allowed. So I started to question a lot of things. My spirit was very, very unsettled. I had a lot of questions for my mom. Why is it that women can't cut their hair? Why are only Amish people going to heaven? Does God really treat people like that? Because the way that we were taught who God was is he was kind of up in the sky, like waiting to like beat us over the head. And that's sort of how the preachers of the church taught us or treated us. Because, I remember having a pin wrong in my dress one time, and I got in trouble for having a pin wrong in my dress. And I asked myself this question. I'm going, if I'm going to hell for putting a pin wrong in my dress, then I may as well go to hell driving a car because this is crazy. And that is how desperate I started to become because nothing was making sense anymore. And I had so many questions. And my mom was actually, we're really close now. Like I have a really good relationship with my mom now, but we butted heads so much because my mom, I think in a way, like she didn't understand my spirit, but she was intrigued by it, but she also didn't know how to help me. Like she didn't have answers to the questions that I had. Her answer was always, that's just the way it's always been. Because she didn't have another answer. And to me, that was not good enough because I so vividly remember one time we had lots of customers that came to our house and there was this lady that would come and she would talk about Jesus. She would talk about God. She was like so in love with God and who he was. And she would talk about it. She didn't push her beliefs on us. She just talked very lovingly about it. But she had really, really short cut hair. And she left one day and I looked at my mom and I went, so just because she cuts her hair really short, even though she loves God, she's not going to go to heaven. And my mom's answer to that was, well, that's just the way it is. And I was like, hell no. I was like, I am not settling for this. This is not good enough. This is not the God I want to believe in. And I ended up becoming a member of the church. And becoming a member of the church means that you get baptized. And once you're baptized, which usually happens somewhere between 18 and 19, now the church has more control over you. And what this allowed me to do is, one, I only went through the motions of it. I have a twin sister and we were at that age. And because she was like, yep, we're ready. Like we got to, get baptized. I went through the motions of it, but I didn't understand it. And I was like, I don't want to be here. When my twin and I were 17, we ran away together for 2 days. And I thought that was my way out. I thought I was done. I was out. This was my time. And on the second day, a brother of ours called the house that we were staying at, which was a cousin of ours that had left a few years before, and talked to my twin. And by the end of that conversation, she said, you guys have to come pick us up. I can't do this. And I was like, that was like the most devastating moment ever. So I reluctantly went back. And for 2 years, I'm back there and I'm like, I can't stay here. Can't be here. But in that entire 2-year process, I started dating a guy from New York. I'm in Ohio. And I get baptized, become a member of the church. Meanwhile, the entire time I'm going, I don't belong here and I don't want to be here, but I have no idea how I'm going to leave or how I'm going to get out. Like, what are my options? I don't know. And so I become a member of the church. And what that allowed me to do is have more insight to how the church was operating and what I agreed and didn't agree with, and how they treated people. And I just could not get on board with how they were treating the members of the church. I chose not to believe in a God that they were teaching who he is. So on June 30th, 2004, I mentioned my boyfriend. There's a reason for that. He was in New York. I was in Ohio. We wrote letters to each other. That's how we communicated. And we maybe only saw each other like twice a year in person. I'm working at my oldest sister's house at the time. She just had a baby. I'm working as a hired maid, and it's my turn to go deliver a letter to my boyfriend. I walk up the street, up to the top of the hill, and to deliver this letter, I open the mailbox. And when I open the mailbox, there's a note in there with no address on it, but it has my name on it. And I was like, I recognized the handwriting. I knew it was my boyfriend's handwriting. And I was like, how the heck did this note get in this mailbox? Like, it doesn't even have an address. So I rip open a note, and he tells me that him and his sister and her boyfriend, all three of them left the Amish the day before, drove down from New York. And if I want to leave too, they will come by that night at 10 p.m. to pick me up. If I don't want to leave, he'll come by another time and we can talk about it. I joke about it now because I'm like, that was just his way of saying, like, I'm breaking up with you if you don't leave. Mm-hmm. But it was as if I had been prepped for that moment, because I still remember to this day, I literally, this was not just in my head, I literally put my hand out and I snapped my fingers and I said, I'm leaving. I didn't even think about it. 2 seconds. And I knew that was my way out. So I go back down, and I have from noon until night to figure out, am I going to tell someone? How am I going to do it? What do I do? I had to sit down at the lunch table that day and try to eat lunch, but I barely touched my food. And my brother-in-law was like watching me, and he knew something was up, but he thought it was because the night before, when we were in the barn milking cows, he yelled at me, and he was like trying to like parent me. And I'm like, you're not my dad. Like, he was really coming at me for things that I was doing that he thought weren't right. He literally said these words. He said, why can't you be more like this girl? And I was really, really hurt, but I took this opportunity to just be kind of like, I want to make him hurt. And I'm going to make him feel like this was his fault, even though it has nothing to do with him. And so I have the rest of the day, and I don't tell anybody. I wait until nighttime. Everybody's getting ready to go to bed. I go upstairs after we all prepare for bed. We said a little evening prayer. Then I go upstairs, and this is the 3rd floor. So this house is basement, regular floor, upstairs. So I'm on the 3rd floor. So I go up there, and I have not told anyone that I'm leaving, because you can't. Because if they find out that you're thinking about leaving, there's a very, very high chance that there's going to be an intervention. And I know people that has happened. Like, they'll have some kind of intervention with either the preachers or leaders of the church. And some people may even get sent off to some place because they think they're crazy. Not very common, but it has happened. So I the first thing I do when I get up to the room is I like rip the covering off my head and I let my hair down, and I'm like, I'm not taking that with me. I wish I took it with me now. But at that time I was like, I don't want anything to do with this, because remember, I've never cut my hair, not allowed to even have my hair down unless I wash my hair. I end up writing a note for my mom, because my dad passed away when I was 13. So he wasn't there anymore. But I wanted to make sure that my mom doesn't think that this was her fault. So I wrote the note and I said, listen, like, I have to go. This has nothing to do with anybody here, but I have to go. And to this day, when I think about that note, I'm going, I don't even know where that came from other than God, because I was not educated, like, to even like think and speak like that very well, except I was apparently. But I let them know, like, this is nothing to do with you. I have to go. So then I grab a couple things. I had $20, which we weren't allowed to like have our own money, but I had $20. I had a flashlight, a couple souvenirs. I'm like, all right, how am I going to do this? I walk over to the window and I open the window that's out onto this roof, this 15-foot roof, that underneath there's a porch. And when I open the window, there's a dog underneath on the porch and he starts barking like crazy. And I'm going, oh my gosh, like they know exactly what I'm up to. And finally, after about 5 minutes, my brother-in-law opens the door and he yells at the dog to shut up. And the dog runs away and runs down to the barn. And I'm like, to this day, my brother-in-law doesn't even know that he helped me, because I wouldn't have just gone out on the roof if the dog stayed there. So everything's quiet. I wait until I feel like they're in bed, climb out onto the roof. And now I'm sitting on this roof contemplating, how am I going to jump off this roof without breaking a bone and then ending up in a hospital and being stuck there forever? My boyfriend's already up on the hill. I know he is because he has a flashlight and he's like kind of flashing at me, like signaling me like, we're here, we're ready when you are. I kid you not. I'm sitting on that roof for around 30 minutes contemplating how I'm going to jump. Meanwhile, I'm thinking about my twin sister. So as twins, most of the time, we're very close. I know that she's getting married 6 months later. And I know that if I jump at this moment and leave, I will not be at her wedding. So for a split second, I thought, well, if I stay for 6 more months, I can be at her wedding and then I can leave. But I also know that if I don't take this chance now and leave when I have this moment, I'm probably never going to leave. And here's something that I want you guys to know. Most people, or a lot of people, actually get stuck sitting on a roof their entire life. Because as I'm sitting there thinking about jumping, I'm thinking about breaking a bone, but I'm also thinking about everything that I am leaving behind. I don't know if I'll ever be able to visit my family again. I don't know if they'll accept me when I come back to visit them. I know that I will not be at any of the weddings, most likely. I don't know if I would ever be at a funeral if someone died. I know I won't be at any kind of family events. But I also know that was behind me, and I'm thinking about those things. Like, that's behind me. And then when I look ahead, 15 feet down, I'm going, but I also know this is my destiny and this is where I'm supposed to go. I have no clue what I'm going to do. No idea. I just know jumping is freedom to me. And so when we think about this, sitting on that roof, a lot of people get paralyzed sitting on a roof like that, maybe not physically, but metaphorically, thinking about, I can't let go, can't let go, can't let go, in order to move forward. But the reality is you have to let go in order to move forward. So don't get so focused on the things that you have to let go of that you can't even walk into the destiny that you're supposed to go and where God wants you to go. So eventually I take a deep breath. And growing up on a farm, I learned how cats never break a bone when they fall or jump. Like, they could literally fall from a 40-foot building and not even break a bone, just get up and walk away. And I learned that they do that by loosening every single joint and bone in their body. Like, they don't stiffen up. So everything's just really relaxed and loose. So I was like, all right, well, I can be a cat. So I take a deep breath, and that's what I did. I made sure that every limb or in my body was just limp. Like, I relaxed everything, and then I jumped. And of course, I didn't break a bone. And that was my way out into the real world.
That's so crazy. Okay, I have a lot of questions. I don't think we're going to get to all of them, because I also want to talk about what you're currently doing. But let's talk about, let's go back to kind of the beginning. what was their motivation? So again, what we're talking about, a lot of this legacy, because they have a legacy, the Amish do, and a lot of it's really positive. Maybe there's internal things that are not super positive, but from an outside perspective, I think that there's a lot of people who really respect the Amish for their commitment to whatever they're committed to. Even though we would never make that commitment ourselves, we recognize that, hey, you have committed to a life that is hard. You know it's hard. You know other people have an easier life, and yet you continue to stay committed to a more difficult life. Why? And so this is what I'm wondering, like, why did they draw the line in the sand in 1860 and say, this is where we're going to stop progressing? Why not wait till they get an engine? Why not wait till what was so significant about 1860? This is the line that we're going to stop progressing on.
I believe it was very much religion driven. So the way that they viewed that was it. I'm actually reading this book right now on the origin of the Anabaptist, and it's teaching me a lot. Within the book that I'm reading, they talked about the shunning. So the Amish people, if you're a member of the church, and I'm shunned right now because I was a member of the church, so I'm shunned from the Amish. And in that book, it talked about the origin of the shunning and how the Anabaptist actually came up with that rule. And it's all based on their religion and biblical, but more Old Testament than New Testament. And for them, they felt like what I've learned anyway, way back then, they felt like everything was going too modern, and modern was evil. And so they actually fought really, really hard. Way back then, the Anabaptists were martyrs. Like there was hundreds and thousands of people that got killed for their faith when they switched from Catholic Romans to Anabaptist. And it had to do with the government, and the Catholic Romans and the government were kind of like a one thing. And so the Anabaptists were like, well, this is not how it's supposed to be. And they started to make their own thing. So modern to them is evil. Even like a radio, like we weren't allowed to have music. So to them, that's evil.
Were you allowed to create your own music or were you not allowed to sing? You weren't allowed to hum?
Well, we had our own German hymn books. So the only music or singing that we had was like our own German hymn books. And so we had our own hymns that we would sing.
But could you have instruments? Could you play on drums? So if somebody found you tapping and whatever, that was against the law, the rules.
Yeah, that was against rules. Our form of music was like, we learned how to, this is the glass. And you take a finger and you put this, and if you have the right type of glass, it will actually make music. And we would do that sometimes.
And was that like edgy though? That wasn't kosher. It wasn't what was supposed to be happening. It was just like, yeah, if you want to get.
It was more just like fun.
Okay, so you didn't get in trouble necessarily for doing that. It was just like, oh, this is okay.
No.
Cool. So then, what was the? So it sounds like the goal of not modernizing was to rebel, for lack of a better word, or create a clear separation from the previous stuff. But I guess the question is, what were the positive lessons that you gained? Because you were there for 18 years, and that's a lot. That's a lot of time. What were the most positive, like 5 things you gained from being raised that way that now you see out in the other world, like the rest of the world? Like, man, had I not been taught these principles as a child, I would not be as successful in business. I would not be as successful in relationships. I would not be as successful as a mother. But I'm so grateful that I did, even though I didn't like it. There's a lot of my childhood I didn't like, I didn't enjoy. I wouldn't recommend to anybody. I would never wish it on my worst enemy. And I'm super grateful that I experienced it and I have no ill will towards that. So what are some of those things, like maybe 5 things that you really gained and you see as really valuable now that you took for granted or didn't understand the value of when you were in the culture?
Hard work. Like, if you want something, you better put the work in to get it. Like, and I'm not saying like just work hard every single day. You can work smart too. But I would say probably at some point I realized that I'm also a workaholic. Like, I've had to like create a little bit of balance there. I don't know if there's ever truly a balance with it, but learning from a young age, like to how to work and use your hands and all of those things. Like we didn't have Netflix, so it wasn't like, oh, we'll get to it tomorrow. It was like, nope, so we had order, we had structure, and we had discipline. Those are three things that I've realized in the last few years that those three things are actually what make you successful. If you have order, you got to have order in your business, in your health life, in your day-to-day life, and you got to have structure. You got to have structure in your business. You got to have structure in your daily life. Like if not, without structure, you have chaos, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have to have discipline. And discipline is like you just show up for yourself and whatever your goals are and whatever it is that you're needing to do. Like discipline is actually what gets you there. So order, structure, and discipline is actually something that I was looking into. And I'm like, that's what the Germans have. The Germans are very much known for order, structure, and discipline. But I realized that was a huge piece of my life when I was growing up. But being self-sufficient. So the one thing that the Amish have right is they are very, very self-sufficient. They're also very stubborn. So if you come into their arena and you're like, you need to like change this. Like I remember like where I'm from, we weren't even allowed the orange triangles on the buggies. Like that was too fancy. So like old order, new order, they'll have those. But where we're from, that was considered too fancy. But from a safety perspective, it would be better. But they fought that. They're like, no, we're not getting orange triangles on our buggies. So they're very, very stubborn. If you come in and you if the outside law comes in and tries to go, well, you need to change this, they're going to fight it tooth and nail and be like, nope, goes against our religious views. We're not going to do it. So one of the things that they're really, really good at is being self-sufficient. And I do believe that there is such a huge gap between old world and new world. And there needs to be some in between here. And I actually believe that's part of my job is to teach people like, listen, you need to be self-sufficient. You don't need to be reliant on so many things and people and the government and whatever it is. Like you can be self-sufficient as much as you possibly can, even in the modern world. You just have to learn how to do it. Learn how to be more self-sufficient. But also the out of the box thinking. So one of the things that I've realized over the last year actually is a lot of people are not able to think out of the box of what they've been taught. Critical thinking for themselves, questioning things. Is it really what they said it is? Is it really the way that it was presented? Being able to critically think and out of the box think. I'll give you an example. I had a friend at my house one time. She was actually dyeing my hair and she goes, do you have any gloves? And I was like, no, but I do have small Ziploc bags. And she was like, I would have never thought about that. And it dawned on me at that point in time that I think so differently. I think so out of the box because that's what it taught me is I never look at if someone's like, oh, the sink's broken and they're just like, we're screwed. That's just what it is. I'm going to go, no, there's a way to fix it and we're going to fix it. Like I will always figure out a way to fix it or find an alternative and I won't settle with, that's just good enough. So I do think that that's a huge piece that they have. They're very, very self-sufficient. Also, they're going to be able, like if the world goes to shit and we're like, we're screwed, like, trust me, they will probably make it because they know how to be self-sufficient. They're not relying on power. They're not relying on the internet and electricity and all of those things. They figured out a way how to live without that, which is not a bad thing. That's what you want to do.
Well, I think that some of the benefits are, and it can be amplified. Do you see this now with the AI world coming in, and there's people who are stuck in the older internet age where they are used to searching and they aren't used to creating that way. And they think, oh, AI is going to come and take our jobs. Maybe similar like Amish people thought, hey, modernization is bad and wrong and we shouldn't modernize and it's going to replace us. So then we're going to stick and we're going to make it our religion to stick in this older world. Same thing's happening now with technology. There's a lot of people who are saying, no, I'm going to stick with the old thing. AI is bad. AI is not going to work. AI doesn't do much unless you have somebody skilled enough to use it. But if you never understood the original creation process, then it's hard to use AI. If you don't understand how a sentence is supposed to be structured, if you don't understand how a book is supposed to be structured, if you don't understand story arcs, then directing AI to do something, it doesn't help, because yes, it's a great tool, but you need to know how to use it. And I think that, as I've noticed with my kids, we've started making, so we harvested oranges off of our orange tree and we made orange juice. Mm-hmm. Right? That was the first time we made orange juice. And they're like, wow, you can make orange juice. You don't just get it from the store or go get it in a cup somewhere. It's like, no, God created this tree and then we squeeze this orange juice. And then another thing is a loaf of bread. Like, I grew up making bread. That was a lot of my childhood. But then my kids are like, no, you can't make bread. You have to buy it from the store. And it's like, no, bread is really a simple thing to make. Like, it's not ridiculously difficult. But the idea of creation, all the way from building a house, building transportation, building these things, rather than assuming that somebody has to give them and you have to buy them, you can actually create something. And I think that the mindset of creation and understanding all of the little details, as you said, the order, the structure, and the discipline, the order of how to construct something properly.
Yep.
Where do the pillars need to be? What type of foundation, support, all of that? That type of mindset, once you understand that, you can go and take that same concept and principles and apply it to business, apply it to family, because you understand the elements that are required to build a sufficient structure and the order in which that structure needs to be built. So, and then the discipline of consistency and the discipline of making sure it happens. So I think that's awesome, summing those up into those three. Out of your 18 siblings, or I guess 17 siblings, you're one of, how many of them have chosen to stay in, and are all of them still in except for you? How do they feel about the fact that you left?
Yeah, so I actually do have 18 siblings. My parents have 19 kids total. Okay. But 4 of us left.
And did they all, were you the first, or were you?
Yeah. I'm the oldest one that left, but two months before I had left, my twin and I were actually the first ones to ever leave. And then we went back. And then a brother of mine that was just older than I am, he had left about 2 months or so before I left. But then a year later, he went back. So he's back Amish. And
what was his drive for leaving, and what was his drive for coming back?
Honestly, I think he just wanted to go experience the world, and just he never had in mind that he would stay out. He just wanted to leave and experience it, drive a car, cut his hair, do the things, and then go back at some point. A lot of kids that do leave, I do believe, I never had this mindset, because when I left that second time, I was like, I'm out, never looked back. But I have talked to my siblings that have left that are younger than I am, and asked them hey, did you think that you would go back at some point? They're like, oh yeah, we thought that, 6 months, maybe a year or so, and then they go back. So I believe that a lot of them, unless if they're still teenagers and when they're leaving, a lot of times they're just kind of I want to go experience the world, go sow my wild oats, and then I'm going to go back if I want to. And I actually have a nephew who I had never met when I was still Amish. He was a baby. He wasn't even 6 months old when I left. A year ago, December, he left the Amish community, but I never knew that he left. We didn't know that he left until this past October. He had been out for almost a year. He found me because of my Instagram account and was he messaged me one day and he goes, I think you're my aunt. And I was like, who are your parents?
Who are your parents?
I was no, are you real? But his name gave it away because he has the same name as my dad's name was. And I was like, that's not a very common name. And so I know that most people in the non-Amish world are probably not going to have that name. So anyway, he ended up being the son of my second oldest brother. And I ended up flying in there over Thanksgiving because I was like, I want to meet you. And so I went in there over Thanksgiving, but he ended up going back Amish to the Amish 2 days later. And I had a conversation with him on Thanksgiving. He hung out all day with us. And I was like, so like what's making you want to go back? And he's like, oh, I just like really miss my family. I was like, that's fair. And I made it very clear to him. I said, nobody here is going to try to convince you not to go back. Like, you get to choose whatever you want to do.
Sure.
Like, if you want to go back, go back. But I did dig a little bit deeper, and I just said, hey, do you feel like you can see yourself there the rest of your life? He's like, no, not really. But he's kind of like weighing out, like, I miss my family. I want to be with my family. But and so that happens a lot too. Is like sometimes they'll go back. They don't want to go back. Because I asked him, I was like, what are you most looking forward to, and what are you not looking forward to? And he's like, I'm looking forward to being with my family, but I'm not looking forward to the rules I have to follow. And I was like, that's fair too. So I think that if you don't have a good, strong foundation and connection when you leave and you get exposed to, like, if he would have gotten exposed to us and like actually got to like hang out with me and my siblings and be part of like a quote unquote family outside of like the Amish community, I think it might be different. I think he might be like, oh, like I can actually build a nice life outside of that. But he never really integrated out. He just kind of like drove a car, cut his hair, and hung out with the same people, or people that had left as well, but they never really like did anything else.
Right.
So the first year is really, really hard.
And I can imagine that. And that's kind of what's fascinating, is seeing that people are leaving and going back. And I want to better understand, 'cause again, this is so common. There's a whole book called The Dream Giver. Have you ever read The Dream Giver by Bruce Wilkinson?
I haven't, no.
Okay, great book. But the character is ordinary, and he lives in the land of familiar. And his goal is to go, and he gets a white feather, which is his dream, and he wants to go chase his dream. But then when he gets the feather and he decides he's going to go on the dream, then all of his border bullies, basically the people who are saying, don't do it, don't move, they become the people who are his border bullies are his family, their friends, they're people who are saying, hey, don't go out there, it's not safe, it's whatever. And you have to beat these border bullies to get to your dream. But then once you get to your dream, if you just stay at your dream and you don't keep going, then soon your dream becomes the land of familiar again. And if you don't go conquer leaving the land of familiar to chase another dream, then it ends up being like it's the same thing. It never ends. And so that same type of thing here, we all have these communities in our life that we're scared to leave, or we're scared to question. We're scared to think, well, what if there was something else out there? And maybe we question it enough to go find something else, but then we say, well, we didn't really find anything different out there. It's just, I mean, it's different, but it's still the same. And that comes with that personal thing. So I'm curious, because you mentioned you joined the religion. In your mind growing up, how did you separate the religion from the culture? Because from an outside perspective, it's like if you're Amish, you're part of the religion. There's no separation between like being part of the religion and being a member of the community. Like, you are the same. If you're part of the community, you're part of the religion. That's kind of from an outside perspective what my experience has been. But that's not necessarily true. So I'm wondering what happens to somebody who at 18 doesn't decide to join the religion. Are they allowed to remain part of the community? How does that work?
Well, I mean, you are part of the religion even if you're not baptized as a member. So, it's really, really, really interesting. Like the way that they teach in the church isn't necessarily like, hey, you're getting saved when you get baptized. That's not what it is. When you get baptized, you are agreeing to the rules of the church and you're submitting to that. So
how are the rules of the church different from the rules of the community?
So to give you an example, most of them are the same, most of them. It's just that once you're a member of the church, you're saying yes to following those rules for the rest of your life. And if you don't, they can shun you. If you're not a member of the church, they can't shun you, and it's up to the parents on how they're going to discipline you for not obeying the rules.
So you could, let's say you're 40 years old, you're like, I never wanted to get baptized and join the church. Then you could still go do whatever you wanted, and they wouldn't shun you because you never actually.
That would be a perfect example. But most of them won't ever get to that age without joining the church. Because here's the thing. It's really, really interesting. And this is something that I always had a question about. Because when you're 18, 19, is kind of the age where they expect you to become a member of the church. And they tell you, if you're not ready, don't do it, because you're just going to cause trouble. But if you don't do it, then you're looked down on, you're talked bad about, and they think you're a rebel and you're a bad person because you're not willing to sit down and go, I'm going to follow the rules. You also cannot get married if you're not
in the community.
You can't get married in the community, or if you're going to be Amish and you want to get married, you have to be baptized as a member of the church.
So if you were to get married to your boyfriend, both of you choose not to join the church, but also you guys choose to stay Amish, you couldn't go to the local courthouse and get married?
No. They would never go to the courthouse.
If you did, would you be shunned because you didn't commit?
Oh, yeah, you'd be shunned. Yeah. Well, no. You wouldn't be shunned because you're not a member of the church.
That's what I'm trying to understand. Like, what's
But the reality is they just wouldn't do that. If you're going to be Amish and you believe in that, you're not going to do that because you're so locked up in the culture. And if you want to be married Amish, you're going to be like, I don't have a problem becoming a member of the church.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I grew up Mormon, which is not Amish, but still a lot of these same things apply when it comes to being a missionary and choosing to go out and do missionary service versus not choosing to do missionary service, choosing to get married in the temple versus not married in the temple. Even though you could get married civilly and then go get sealed in the temple later, and it effectively is the same thing. And in other countries where that's the required law, then it's normal. But in America, where it's not the required law, then culturally, if you chose to get married versus being married in the temple, then sure, it's the same thing. It's like, well, why did you do that? Who are you trying to appease? Were you not worthy of getting married in the temple? Is that why you chose to do it the other way? And it's like, no, I wanted my other family members there. Anyways, but those are all things that hindsight's 2020. I got married in the temple and half my family wasn't there. And so it's fascinating. Not that there's shunning on the outside, but there's definite participation elements where like you can't participate. And again, although we're talking about this from a religious cultural perspective, this is the same I think it's the same in every good, well-structured culture. Apple's the same way. Like I use Apple products. I've got an Apple laptop. I've got an iPhone, and they do the same thing in Apple, right? Do you think we don't look down on Android users? Absolutely we do. We
don't like the green text.
Yeah, but this is the thing. They've all created this. Every successful corporation or business has created this. Every successful movement has created some form of, maybe it's different rules about cutting hair. A lot of religions have different rules about what they should look like, what type of clothing they should wear, what does religious garb look like. A lot of people, they have these identifiers because it creates a sense of security inside of the tribe. And you clearly know who's not part of the tribe. And that type of separation actually helps people go farther. And so one of the things that I think about and why we're talking about legacy is if you want to create a movement, if you want to create a legacy, if you want to create this thing that's going to last a long time and create massive change, then you need to learn from these religions, these people who have figured it out and have been lasting for literally centuries doing it, rather than saying, oh, that's all bad, we shouldn't do it. No, I literally study this stuff and I'm like, how can I implement into my business model? How can I implement those same practices, those same identities into my business model? There's a book right now called Choose Your Enemies Wisely by Patrick Bet-David. And it's focused all about that. How are you choosing the right enemy of your business so that you can build a coalition of people who are your 1,000 supporters so you can go become a millionaire or you can go do whatever you want to do? Like, how do you choose the right thing? And studying these religions for those of you who want to create a legacy, I would study them and say, how can I implement maybe not the negative experiences of not being part of it from a so there's two sides of this perspective. There's the one side of the perspective where there's the active negative shunning side that you're talking about. But I think the other side of it is there's elements of, and this is even for me, there's elements of the Amish community that I've witnessed and gone and seen them like, man, I wish I could be part of that. I wish I could have that many siblings all committed. I wish that I was part of this team that could go construct a barn in a day. Like just the sheer mass coolness of that is like, we did that. My wife, she's in a choir. And when I watch the choir perform or the orchestra perform, there's an envy of like, man, I wish I had the dedication. I wish I had the commitment to be part of that. And then you look at other businesses and they do the same thing. They say, man, am I willing to hold this high standard? If you've ever followed, what's his name? Andy Frisella, he has a 75 hard challenge, right? And it's like, look, are you part of the tribe or are you not part of the tribe? Did you do the 75 hard or did you not do the 75 hard? And don't ever say you did if you didn't. We're going to call you out. But if you did, you can wear that as like, I'm part of the tribe that did that. And so every great culture, movement, business has these elements of participation. And they don't always have to be shaming the people who didn't participate, but they can be welcoming. Hey, when you're ready to do this challenge, let's do it, man. Let's go all in and invite people. So there's ways to have the positive without the negative, I think. I also want to talk about another concept that you brought up here of the pin versus the car as sin. Okay.
Yep.
Because these are the questions that I think more people need to ask themselves. So often we judge other people for the things they're doing and we don't look at what we're doing. And when in reality, I think we should have more compassion and charity for both them and us.
Yep.
Than saying one thing is worse or better than the other person, it's all the same. So talk a little bit more about what was that mindset process of like, you know what, if I'm going to get in trouble for this, I may as well go all the way, and how that could be a positive thought rather than a negative thought.
Yeah, well, in my mindset, when I was in that moment, that was a moment of desperation. And I think that we can take the word desperation and make that a positive thing. Because if you really think about it, like for them, like leaving and driving a car is one of the ultimate sins that you can commit other than murder. So to me, a pin was such a small thing that didn't make any sense to me. And to them, that was still a big deal. And if you're not listening and obeying the ordering of the church and the orders that they have, you're going to go to hell. That was their belief and what they taught. And so I thought to myself, what's worse? Like, I may as well experience life fully, go drive a car, do what I want anyway, if that is where I'm going to go anyway. It's not, I can't say that I now look at that and go, well, that was healthy, but it was desperation. And out of desperation comes innovation. And when your back is up against the wall and you're desperate, you're going to figure shit out. And you're going to be like, all right, I got to buckle down and I got to figure something else out because I don't have another option. So the word desperation can become a positive thing. And, you look at the car and the pen, what is that? Apples and oranges? Like, there's such a vast difference, but there was so much desperation between those two. And I felt like my back was up against the wall. And also, like, I know now that entire time, like, God was just preparing me. My spirit was so incredibly unsettled. I was the black sheep of the family. I couldn't agree with what they were teaching. I couldn't agree to, I just couldn't abide. Like, I would always get in trouble. And a out of the box thinker is going to do that. Like, you're just going to get in trouble and you're going to break all the rules because you just can't. And that's what out of the box thinking does. But I was so desperate at that time that I was just like, oh, throw my hands up and do anything because I can't do this anymore. And I think that that's where desperation becomes a positive thing.
Yeah, I think there's value in both. Because I feel like I grew up in maybe not a super restrictive family per se. Definitely, I don't feel like our religion was super restrictive, but there was a lot of uncertainty as to what was going to set our parents off as far as rules. Like it was like there was no like, hey, this is where the line is. It was more of whenever I'm upset, I'm upset. And because of that, then everything was horrific. Everything was a bad thing. So if everything's a bad thing, then nothing's a bad thing. And so it does allow me in business to take more risks. I'm like, what's the worst that could happen, man? What are they going to do? Bankrupt myself? What's going to happen? I'm going to go to jail? Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, there's not that many bad things that happen in America if you fail in business or you fail in life, or like, there's just not that many bad things. On the other hand, the same level of like scrutiny and intensity taught me a really positive lesson on the other hand, though, of like, what's the value of, just like you said, as far as order, structure, and discipline. There's the side of like, well, if everything's bad, then nothing's bad. Let's just try it all. But the other side is what it's taught you to be meticulous, to say, look, we've got to make sure everything is in order, not just order enough, not 80%, not 50%, not 60%. No, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it 100% all the way. We're not going to half-ass it. We're going to do it all the way. And that's a whole nother mindset that a lot of people in today's society, I don't see exhibited. I don't see people thinking that way. I see people thinking, and it's kind of funny, but my wife, when I married her, this is just, I was going to school, she was going to school. And for me, if I got less than an A or an A plus, I was like, I failed the class. It was no like, it was a pass fail for me in my mind. I either got the best in the class or I failed. I was either excellent or I failed. There wasn't like, okay, but then I marry my wife and she's like, oh, C's get degrees. I was like, what? That's such a weird thought process in life, to go through life thinking, oh, if I just do enough, it's okay. It's like, no, just doing enough is crappy. Just doing enough is not an okay way to live your life. Like, it's either all in or don't do it. There's no gradient of success pass fail. It's either pass fail. And I think that understanding that is really crucial when you're building a business, and for you understand it to your core. Hey, every detail of this was important to them.
Yep.
And I was raised 18 years being extremely hyper detailed oriented, almost to a PTSD response of like overthinking everything. But that PTSD response, I believe, because I know other sides of your business, that enables you to be a more effective business leader, to be a more effective mother, to be a more effective individual, because you are detail oriented and you do care about the specifics more so than somebody's like, it's okay. It's good enough.
Yeah.
You don't want a good enough contract.
Well, I always say, there's no try, there's only do. So if I hear someone using, like, I work with clients all the time. And if we're talking about goals and we're like, okay, this week your goal is to do A, B, and C. And if their response back to me is, I'll try to do that, I go, no. We don't use the word try here. That's not even in the vocabulary, because trying, if you use the word, I will try to do that, or I will try to show up, that's you not actually committing to what the goal is. There's only I will or I can. Those are two completely different things from I'll try. I'll try is because the other follow-up to that is, are you committed to it? So you can decide. I want to lose 50 pounds. You can decide I want to save money. You can decide I'm going to take care of myself. You can decide you want to build a business. Decision with that, without the follow-up of commitment and follow-through, means nothing.
Right. Yeah. One of my contemporaries, I guess, business partners, he brought up something this year, setting new goals. When we were talking about setting our goals, he says, yeah, I'm not having my team anymore set any goals, because goals are like, just what you're saying, they're kind of like an I'll try thing. So he says, I don't ask my team what their goals are anymore. I ask them what their commitments are. And when you get somebody's commitments, it's way different. So for me, I was like, that's actually true. Because when I decided that I was going to accomplish something, I committed to minimum standards of excellence. Now, can I do way more? Can I way outperform my stuff? Absolutely. And I hope to. And that can be my goal or my long-term objective. But my daily commitments are what I have to be committed to. And if I can be committed to my daily commitments, then I know that the outcome is going to be at least my goal or more. I just know that because I've done the daily commitments. I've seen and witnessed thousands of people who have kept these simple daily commitments, really, like waking up, exercising, brushing your teeth, doing your hair, like preparing yourself. That's one daily commitment. So like, just do it. The other daily commitment, making phone calls. If you communicate to enough people about what you do, you will be successful. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you tell enough people what you do, you will have success. And people are like, no, it's just too much effort. Look, do you think McDonald's doesn't advertise? Do you think they don't send leaflets into everybody's email across the whole entire world? They're sending, not email, post service. They're sending coupons, and most people are throwing them away. They know probably 95% of the people throw those things away, and they still send them to every person.
They only need 5 to 10%.
Yeah. They don't, like, when you have 330 million people, you need 1% to buy your stuff every day or every week, and you're solid. So it's like thinking about stuff at scale. People are so scared of having bad numbers because they're never willing to run high enough numbers to actually accomplish something. And
the thing is, it's a redundancy with it. Like with anything that you want to become excellent at, you have to have redundancy. And if you don't have redundancy, like it's not going to be successful. And you can't just like half-ass things. If you want something to be successful and be really, really good and excellent, then you have to commit to that, but you have to commit to the redundancy of it. It's the same thing as if someone's a bodybuilder and they're like, okay, I'm going to take my body and I'm going to transform it and become a bodybuilder and build tons of muscle. Do you know how much redundancy is in that? There is so much redundancy. It didn't just happen unless we're shooting up steroids. Like there's
even if you shoot up steroids, it doesn't like the only way you can just have it is you go get surgery and get silicone put in. Because even steroids. Yeah. I mean, I don't know everything about steroids. I'm not a health nut, but from my understanding of them, if you just shot yourself full of steroids and sat on a couch, you're not going to get buff.
No, you still have to work out. You don't have to work out as long and hard.
Yeah, that's the thing. You still have to use. You're shooting something in there so it can enhance the process of rebuilding or enhance those stuff. But if you never do the work for it to benefit, pre-workout, take a pre-workout drink and then just sit there.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't feel good, right? And so same thing, we've got to get to that point. So that's, we ran out of time, but I'm so grateful for your time, Lizzie, because this conversation needs to be had. I'd love to have you on again. I have so many more questions written down that we just didn't get to today. But I really believe that these questions that we're asking ourselves to help us decide what is the biggest part of our legacy. Why do we want to do what we're doing? Where do we see ourselves? Is where I'm at right now, am I going to be okay with that for the rest of my life? Even if that's all you got out of this episode was that question that Lizzie asked herself, hey, am I okay with this? Nope. I've got to find a solution outside of it. Most people have never done that. Most people think, well, if I just keep my job, I'll be okay. And they've never questioned if they actually will. They don't even know what that looks like. They just are taking other people's perspective saying, yeah, you should do this. You have no idea if what you're doing is going to work out. Just ask yourself, is this job going to get me to the life that I want? Is this amount of income that I have, is that going to give me to retirement? Is that going to give me the right healthcare, travel, everything that I want? Is it going to help me create the legacy that I want? If it's not, then do something about it. And if the only thing you know how to do is reach out to Lizzie, if the only thing you know how to do is reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, somewhere to ask, hey, what is the next step? Reach out to us. Lizzie, where can they find you online?
You can find me on Instagram, Lizzie Ens _wellness. If you're on TikTok, you can find me Lizzie H _wellness. Both of those are pretty high volume social media platforms. And then I'm on YouTube too. So if you're not on any regular social media accounts, you can find me on YouTube, and that's been doing really, really well for me too. So you can find me there too.
Where do they find your book?
Actually, right now, my book is not available because I'm redoing some things. So,
come on, Lizzie.
I know that I have lots and lots of people waiting for it, but I'm republishing it, and my goal is to republish it this year. But I need to redo some things, and then it'll be available hopefully later this year.
Okay. Well, when that gets ready to publish, we want you back on. Fair enough?
Awesome. That's perfect. I like that.
Okay. Awesome. Reach out to Lizzie and just ask her more of her story. And honestly, you don't even have to ask her some of it. She posts a lot of stuff that, I don't know, maybe I'm just intrigued in that world, but just go follow her on Instagram and watch her videos. They're funny. She's funny. She has fun. She enjoys her life. She's not a victim. She focuses on the positive all the time. You need more positive people in your life who have been through some real hardship and are finding a way to be positive about it. So thank you so much. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy show.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.